Hey everybody, this is Kanan with the Movie Boys. I am doing another box office projection this week. So this week we're going to be looking at Scream 7. This is just kind of our prediction for this coming week, and we're hoping to get better and better each week. And then if y'all see anything in how I'm doing any of these numbers, how I'm getting any of these numbers, then I'd love to hear some recommendations on maybe how I can get some more accurate numbers. We can definitely try them out each week and see what we get. So, looking at last week's results, we were pretty good on GOAT. Something about animated movies, they're pretty reliable generally, especially the last 5 or so years. They've been really, really solid, um, especially if the audience score is high. Our biggest miss was I Can Only Imagine 2. We had that at 13.5, and it actually, you'll see it down here, made 7.75. So pretty big miss. That's our accuracy grade right there. And Wuthering Heights overperformed our projections at 14. And we always like a movie to overperform rather than underperform. So that's good. Even though I didn't care for the movie, I'm still glad it's doing well. And then Crime 101 was not amazing, but also not horrible. It underperformed our projections. Something we talked about last week was that the comps that we used for it, actually, almost none of them had drops of over 50%. So I thought I was being a little bit conservative with that guess of 54% drop, and it actually underperformed even that. So dropped more than 60%, which is pretty unfortunate. That movie's probably not going to be profitable by any stretch of the imagination. And then you look back at How to Make a Killing. That was the kind of just hunch guess. We didn't really have a whole lot of analysis for that. That was just one I was kind of hoping for an overperformance, and also just kind of thought it would do better just with Glenn Powell and Margaret Qualley, and just thought it would do a little bit better, which it didn't do bad. It did 3.6. And we talked about the polymarket prediction last week of having How to Make a Killing at making less than 3.5 million, and it had it about 80%, just about. And if you did bet the over on that, then you would have made a little bit of money. The other thing we said would have been a good bet was not a good bet. That was I Can Only Imagine 2. I thought it would clear that 8 million mark really easily. It did not. So 1 for 2 on that, I guess. So anyways, jumping into how we got the numbers that we'll be using today, at least for Scream 7. We didn't go super into heavy analysis for any of the other movies just because they are already released. So at that point, all you're going is based off of how their comps generally drop, and we can try and do a little bit more analysis for it. But I think the more fun and more variation is with the just opening weekend. So you'll see right here the comps I used, which was kind of fun. We just got to use all the Scream movies. So for that, this first block right here is just going over the actual, just pure numbers, how much they made, the average per theater. That's going to be the main number we're trying to nail down, because we can't always predict exactly how many theaters a movie's going to be in. Um, so if we can get that average, then we'll feel really, really good about that, really strong, because I'm predicting it at 3,500 theaters, but it could easily be in more. GOAT right now is in 3,800. Avatar was in 3,800. So Wuthering Heights was 3,600. So you don't really ever know exactly how many. I'm just using 3,500 as the base for our guessing. So looking at this average, 8,800 per theater, that would end up giving us a 30 million, right about $31 million opening if it opens in 3,500 theaters. Which, looking at this projection, that's actually exactly where it ended up. Which we already had that projection before even seeing this, so that's good. This guy clearly has a lot of confidence in Scream 7 to do really well. So hopefully it will. I don't have that much confidence in it, but I'm hoping I'll be wrong. So going down, looking at the final. So this number right here is going to be using this impact score that we kind of gave ourselves. So using the comps, I don't think we're going to have much better comps than this. So I gave it a pretty high rating. I also didn't give it over 1. Um, I just didn't feel like the overperformance of them was going to necessarily apply to this one. So that's what I ended up with, a 0.95. These numbers are subjective, so I can't really articulate that well why they are there, but market momentum, I just have it as late February. I don't think it's that amazing of a time. And going based off of last week, it did pretty well. I was going to have this in the sevens range, but just based off of last week, overperforming our projections and most other people's total box office projections, that's pretty good. So I think people are getting a little bit amped up, a little bit excited. So 0.85 was, I think, pretty solid. The competition, I gave this a pretty high one because I think the competition is going to be limited this week. Um, you still have some horror movies in there that are lingering along. Looking at last week, you could see Send Help. That'll probably still make at least another 2 million. But you don't really have super hardcore horror. Psycho Killer didn't do well. I mean, only opened in 1,100 theaters, but really you don't have much competition here. So, if anything, you could have maybe put this at 1 or maybe even above that, but we're going to stick with our number right here because I think that's still strong. And then timing, I don't think late February is particularly great. Um, Obviously, I could be wrong here. Looking back at this weekend in particular, weekend number 9 of um, the year, generally there are some big releases. So going back to, sorry, that's week 16. Week 9, you see Dune Part 2 came out 2 years ago. Creed 3 came out 3 years ago. The Batman came out 4 years ago. And Captain America Brave New World was still out. The weekend that I think is most comparable to what we'll see this weekend is 2020. This was pre-COVID, so no shutdowns were going on. Let's go back there. We can go to just that weekend for 2020, and you'll see The Invisible Man, which would be Scream in this case, Sonic the Hedgehog, which would be Goat in this case. I think 44 million combined is probably pretty accurate to what we'll see. Because I think Scream will make a little bit more, and I think Goat will make a little bit less. So going back to our numbers, I don't think the timing is particularly great, but that's something I could be wrong about. It's also not that hefty of a weight, but that's going to be what I'm going with for now. The buzz, I really have just not seen anything about this movie. I don't see any big marketing push. I've seen trailers in theaters, but on social media or anything, I haven't seen anybody talk about it, haven't seen anybody really care about it. And the people I have seen talk about it aren't really excited for it. So I gave that a pretty low score too. So what we ended up with is a 0.87. So if we times that by our average, this is where we get that number. And that's where we get, anytime you see final, that means that it's our number times that. So our weighted, this is just with those weights taken into account. Weighted final, inflation adjusted, this one will be this box right here. This is going over how much each movie would have made if it were released and made the same numbers today. So it's obviously quite a bit more. And hopefully that gives us a little bit more of an accurate look at what it might end up being. But right now I'm going with a bit lower confidence. Over here, we'll see the last, we did the weighted scores plus inflation plus the impact score. That one ended up at 36. So down here, you'll see all those numbers taken into account. And we are going to calculate the accuracy of those numbers next week to see what maybe we could use best going forward. What I'm going to use here this week is going to be this weighted number. So the projection I have is 31,500,000 at 9,000 per theater average. So if this makes a little bit more but opens in 4,000 theaters instead and still has a 9,000, I'll feel pretty dang good about that. This is really the main number I'm trying to get right, is that per theater average. The total number, it really just depends on the amount of theaters. So this is what I'll be looking at for this weekend, going down to see how we're going to do. 31.5, and then GOAT, I have making 9. That's a bigger drop than I probably will be, but I'm trying to be a little bit conservative on that one. Wuthering Heights, I have it about the same amount of a drop, 57, 57. This one is, people don't really have this making very much money. I think this will be kind of like Stray Kids from a few weeks ago, which made 5.6, 5.7. So that's why I have it at 6. And then I can only imagine 2. Double or nothing, I guess, on hoping for it to overproject. And then lastly, just the number. So like I said, it's comparable to 2020. So that's kind of the weekend we're using. So looking at that, it made 97. Do we think it's as strong as that weekend? I don't, just because we don't have as many 10 million makers, like double digits. So to give you an idea, we don't have a movie like The Call of the Wild, just kind of randomly making money. So we have a lot more of these. So if we think third will be more like these, then minus that by 7, 8 million, that's where we end up with this 90 million number. So hopefully it'll be more than that. Hopefully all of these will be more than what I'm projecting. And if not, hopefully it'll be the exact same. So it makes me look good. But overall, this is going to be my projection for next week. And I would love to know y'all's thoughts on the analysis I used this week, because I went a little bit more in depth this week with the analysis, with the estimating, because I'm trying to kind of come up with a formula that I can use to at least give me a range, and then from that range pick a pretty good solid number that I feel comfortable with. Because I mean, like I've said before, I'm not going to give y'all like a 25 to 35 million dollar range or something like that. I'm going to pick a specific number and see how it does from there. Looking at the other projections, they have it way more than this. So they have a lot more confidence in it than I do. 45 to 55, 51.7. It's a lot, and even where I have it at, they have it at 1%. So I don't really know the hype behind it. I guess maybe I'm just missing it, but I really just don't see the massive level of excitement for this one. But in fairness, I didn't see that much for Scream 6, but I don't think I was paying as close attention then. So we'll see, but I'm hoping I'll be wrong to some extent, because I do want it to overperform projections. This is just really where I honestly think it'll end up, is an underperformance. And there's no reviews to even go off of, really. You can look at these early reviews. I think it says 5, but there's really 6, and 2 of them are bad, which, yeah, they're not even showing them anymore. 2 of them were bad, or 4 of them were bad. 2 of them were good. I imagine this is going to end up in the 50s, 60s range for critic reviews. Who knows for audience? Probably pretty high. But the per theater average, that's going to be my big kind of guess for this weekend is 9,000. So if that's the number we get and it ends up in more or less theaters, we'll feel as good about that as we can. And again, please let me know if there's any other ways that you can think of that I could maybe get some other numbers, get some more accurate numbers, and yeah, hopefully we can use them next week and try them out, see maybe if they're going to work out better than what we have here, because these are a lot of just what came to the top of my mind of how we could maybe potentially find it. So, yeah, please let me know.